Hi everyone, Golnoosh here, and the amazing Anna Safarovich asked me to briefly talk about why I write and what is a perfect poem in my opinion. Um, Firstly, the reason I write, the short answer is because I feel like it, because I've had this urge since I was very young. When I learned to read and write in my mother tongue, Farsi, I immediately started journaling afterwards, and I just had this urge to write, and it just pours out of me, and that's always been the case. But then later on, of course, when I studied literature and creative writing academically, uh, that changed it a little bit. That changed my relationship with writing a little bit. And I write as a means of self-expression. I do enjoy expressing myself, and writing is my favorite medium to do so. However, that's not the only reason I write. For me, it's also about exploration, and to me, that's as important as expression. And by exploration, I mean I learn new things through writing. I learn about myself and the world, and I experiment with new ideas and thoughts, and I explore writing itself as an art form. Um, so, yeah, it's a combination of having this urge to express myself and to express my thoughts and ideas and imagination. Um, but also, it's because I have cultivated it, and I really enjoy it as an art form. And my idea of a perfect poem, that's a very deep and layered question. Actually, it's a really good question, but it's hard to define perfection, and and my idea of perfection in writing is something that changes me. So if I read a poem and I feel changed, or I feel something, I feel disturbed by it even, or I feel thoughtful, or I enjoy it, it gives me something, beauty, or even grief, or catharsis, could be all those things. So it changes me. If it changes me, I consider that to be perfect, if perfection exists. And to do so, I think the poem needs to be deep, both in terms of content, it's important to me, but also stylistically and in terms of form. Um, it, it needs to be wild and raw, but also polished and sculpted. Um, so although it feels natural, at the same time it's also the craft is impeccable. That's what I really enjoy in poems. And there are, unfortunately, there are so many poems that I perceive to be perfect. They make me feel so many things, and they have changed me, and they will keep changing me, and I feel constantly changed by my reading practice. Um, so I'm not sure if it's if I'm making sense right now. So I'm just gonna read one of my all-time favorite poems that I perceive to be a perfect poem. I have so many favorite poems and novels and stories, but this is one of the poems, one of my recent favorites. a poem that I keep returning to, and a poem that I presume to be perfect. And I will read it to you, and then you can judge for yourself. It's called My Past, and it's by Dennis Cooper. My past. My past is a short string of beautiful boys or young men I admired, dragged to bed, left in ruins on corners with taxi fare home. Another of friends who were horny, who I could have slept with but didn't because they were ugly, insane, or too much like me to be sexy. We were partners for sweeps of wild parties, took dope till they felt like museums which we could pick over for bodies to idealize with caresses. The sun rose slowly. I was still huffing and toiling with them like a sculptor attempting to get things just right, finally collapsing in bed with some smeared, smelly torso before me and a powerful wish to be left alone. Take you, for example, who I found throwing up in the bathroom of some actor's mansion and crowned my new boyfriend. Your ass made me nervous till I explored it. Now I want to forget it. My friends feel this way too. I know them. We've been close since before we were artists, working to leave haunted eyes on our lovers. I've thrown out hundreds like you and found only art can remain so aloof in its makeup that I'll stare endlessly into its eyes like a kid with a microscope. Once I was back when art chatted just over my head, when I was still glancing up the red swim trunks of some boy who I think was named Jimmy and wondering what could be out there, miles from my hands. He was leaving like you. Who knows where that man and that feeling are now. And I hope you enjoyed this poem as much as I do, but even if you don't, I'm sure you have your own idea of a perfect poem. Thankfully, there are so many of them. The reason why I think this is a perfect poem is because there is so much in it. It's about grief, it's about desire, it's about loss, it's about loneliness, and it's about art. But also, it's also, these are all universal, important subject matters. But also, it's done in such a nuanced and unique way that it's new, it's fresh, and it's authentic. And I really love that extended metaphor in the opening of the poem. My past is a short string of beautiful boys or young men I admired, dragged to bed, left in rows on corners with taxi fare home. I think that's one of the most beautiful extended metaphors I've ever read. Yes, Eliot, eat your heart out. Although I do think Proof Rock is also a perfect poem, but at the moment, this is my favorite poem, and a poem that I keep returning to. So like I said, there are so many of them, and you know, Power by Audre Lorde is another great example of a perfect poem that it just gives me everything. And it is so powerful, but it's also about power, and that I remember the first time I read it, I felt something changed in me because it really moved me, and that's my idea of a perfect poem.